This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. And by Boris Effects, a leading developer of visual effect plugins, titling, video editing, and workflow tools for broadcast, post-production, and film professionals. Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Let's Edit with Avid Media Composer tutorial. And in this lesson, I want to wrap up our look at the 2019.6 release of Avid Media Composer by talking about the new inspector tool, as well as a few other, I'll call them bells and whistles, update features that don't necessarily require a big discussion about, but ones that I want to draw your attention to anyways. All right, let's keep our introduction short. Let's just get into Media Composer and let's get started. All right, so let's Command or Alt and Tab into Avid Media Composer, and let's talk about the inspector. I'm going to navigate to Tools. I'm going to come right down here to the Inspector tool. Now you'll notice by default the window is floating. So what I'm going to do for the purposes of this lesson is I'm just going to pull up our timeline here just a little bit, and I'm just going to place the Inspector tool right down here, docked to the Audio tool. Very nice. All right. So how does the inspector tool work? Well, it works very simply. All I'm going to do is simply select any clip in my project, and as soon as I do, I don't need to double click on it or anything to call it up into the preview window. As soon as I select the clip, immediately the inspector comes alive and gives me an absolute ton of information about this clip. Everything from the file, when it was created, the type of video wrapper. The most important probably piece of information is the video wrapper, as well as the plugin that's being used to link to this file. Also information like where it's located, the frames per second, video information, as well as clip, time, film, stereoscopic information, dynamic metadata, and custom information. Now, I'm going to be honest, a lot of the information down at the bottom of the inspector window I don't really need. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove it. What we're going to do is simply right click anywhere in the inspector, and I'm simply going to say choose columns. Now you'll notice a lot of information in here. But to be honest, I know the information that I don't need. I don't want custom, dynamic, user, stereoscopic, film, ancillary data, CDL. I think I'm just going to take time out for the purposes of what we're doing, as well as all the way up to the clip color. Now all I have to do is simply say OK. The inspector has now been stripped down to only show me the information that I've requested to see. Now what I can do is simply navigate up to the profile dropdown. Let's save this as Kevin's Clip View. I'm simply going to say save. You'll now see it's there, and we can get in and save different inspector views based on the information that we need to see. The inspector tool is a much welcome addition to Media Composer. I cannot tell you how many times I'll go back out of Media Composer, find a clip that I've linked to, right click on it, and use Media Info to get information about the clip that I now have access to right from within the new inspector tool. All right, let's move on and let's talk about probably the biggest new feature inside of Media Composer 2019.6. That's right, you know it, I know it, he's your friend and he's my friend. Liftman has returned. Here he is right here. It's basically the same old lift tool, just basically given the little lift band that he used to have a long time ago that was updated, and now he's been brought back to be classic lift man again. And we also now have the extract tool looking like the scissors once again as well. Now I'm going to talk at this point about probably the most controversial change that I think, and I call it controversial because I think it's controversial, that's happened to Media Composer. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drop a clip into my timeline, and Media Composer editors will know the last time we had a change like this that happened. And the change that I'm referring to is that if I want to change the start time for the time code of this clip, what I have to do is I have to right click basically inside of the timeline window, go to sequence report, I have to enter the starting time code, let's just say like 10 hours. What I have to then do is apply changes and say cancel, instead of just opening a timecode window and say, make this the timecode. Now that was pretty controversial at the time, a whole bunch of years ago. Now here is the next most controversial one, and it has to do with audio scrubbing basically. Audio scrubbing is no longer assigned to the caps lock key on the keyboard. It is now completely mappable. So how are we going to show this to you? What I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to Tools. I'm going to come down to my Command palette. Our audio scrub shortcut can be found in our Play category of the Command palette. It's located right over here, which of course we can take, we can drag it, we can assign it to a button. To be honest, what I have done with my toggle audio scrub tool is I've actually put it at the top of the timeline. Now, why is this controversial? Well, let me show you why. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to my settings here. I'm going to come to my user settings. I'm going to come to my keyboard setting right here. Now, here's why this is controversial. What I'm going to do is, can I close the settings window? Yes, I can with the keyboard open. Very nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the toggle digital audio scrub shortcut and I'm going to assign it to caps lock, except for one problem. You cannot map a command to caps lock. Now, this is something that has been mapped to that key since basically the inception of Media Composer, and I cannot tell you how many times in the last 2 months I've been pressing caps lock to try to get audio scrub to come on, only to remember that it is now not there anymore and cannot be assigned to that key. So what I recommend to get you rolling is do what I just did. Put that command at the top of your timeline so that it's there, you'll see it, you'll know to click on it whenever you need to turn audio scrubbing on, and then eventually figure out a keyboard shortcut that works for you. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it to F2 on my keyboard, only because that used to be batch digitize and I don't digitize anything anymore. So F2 might be a good option for me for audio scrub. Okay, so let's move on now. Let's talk about multi-monitor support. Now I saw that in the notes for Media Composer, it said 2 or more monitors. Now, to be honest, I don't know much about working with more than 2 monitors, because for me, 2 is way more than enough. But apparently, Media Composer might support more than 2. I will need to get clarification on that, though. But to turn on dual display, if it's not turned on already, now I only have one display, so obviously it's going to be grayed out for me. But what you're going to do is navigate up to Windows, and you will come down to Host Panels. You'll see I only have one display set, but if I had 2, I could simply select the next one. The second panel would come alive. You can then do whatever you need to do on one panel or another. All right, let's talk about another very cool feature update for Media Composer, and that is the ability to either capture as MXF OP1A media or mix down as MXF OP1A media. So what does that mean for you? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to my settings here for 1 second, and I believe the user settings, does it have our media creation tool? No, that could be the project settings. There's our media creation option right there. I'm just going to filter out my system and my launch drive, and what I'm now going to do is head right over here beside render to media type. You'll see that I have the ability to change the video settings from the video wrapper format of Avid OP Atom. I'm going to drop that down and select MXF OP1A media. Now you'll notice that as soon as I change that, our audio settings update as well. Why do they update? Well, now being able to capture as MXF OP1A or to mix it down, what you'll be able to do is to capture video, audio, and data as a single file. Okay, if I was to cancel out of my media creation settings, let's just close our settings here altogether, and if I was to come in here and just select an in and out point like such, we'll just select video and audio at the same time. I'm going to come up to my timeline dropdown, come to Mixdown, and there's an OP1A MXF Mixdown, which again will mix down video, audio, and data into a single file. Now, with that being said, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come back to my settings. In my project settings, I'm going to come back to media creation. I'm just going to come to, let's just come to Mixdown and transcode, because I also want to point out that if I drop that down, you'll now see that what we also have the ability to do is to work in 32-bit float space. You'll see there's our DNX uncompressed 422 32-bit float video resolution. And if we were to have media at that resolution, we also have the ability to view 32-bit float in our timeline as well. I'm just going to close my settings. I'm going to come down here to my display options or my video quality menu. I'm going to right click and you'll see there we not only have access to our 10-bit quality, but also to float quality as well. All right, now two more things that I want to show you before we wrap this up. What we now also have the ability to do, and you'll notice that as I start to drag this bin over here, make my composer window wider, that as I drag my bin over, you'll see that I have my information up here at the top, my bin view, as well as the different views for the actual display. But as I drag that over, you'll notice that as the bin gets thinner, all that information actually disappears. So where does it go to? Because as I drag back, it reappears. Well, it's not actually disappearing. It's actually just being tucked away into this drop-down menu here. Okay, so we have the ability to keep these bins as thin as we want to, but still have access to all of the tools that we need to have access to. All right, last but certainly not least, a little bit of an effects enhancement. So let's close the inspector because I don't need to see that anymore. I'm just going to switch back to my edit workspace. Very nice. All right, last two things that I want to talk about. They actually involve effects work. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift a big piece out of the middle here. Okay, lift. And the cool feature that I want to show you is how many times have you had to get in and you've had to add an effect to filler like I'm going to do right now. So what do? You get in, you add edits, and then you basically drag the effect and drop it into your timeline. What I'm going to do is instead of doing that, I'm actually just going to mark an in and out point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call up my effects palette here. And I think for my effects palette, I'm just going to stick it over here. Let's just hold Option or Alt so that we can tab it in there. And I'm just going to pick anything. It doesn't even really matter what it is here. Let's just come to my Animat. Why not? Okay, there's Animat. What I'm going to do with Animat is just take it, drag it, and drop it down. You'll notice that only that area highlights in my timeline. I'm going to let it go. And now only that area that had the in and out points marked will now be filled. All right, so I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Now, keep in mind, there are some additional features that I haven't mentioned in these lessons. So what I encourage you to do, of course, when you download and install 2019.6 is to check out the README file that contains all of the new features so that you don't miss any of the good ones while you're editing. All right, now as we're wrapping up, I want to remind you to check out our sponsors, Video Guys, for all of your Avid software and hardware, as well as thousands of other products that you can check out over at videoguys.com. I also want to give a big shout out to the team at Boris FX, makers of BCC, Sapphire, and Mocha, and don't forget to use that coupon code of MC101 to get 10% off your next BCC license. And if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can send them to me at kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.